All right, another podcast from the Michigan Institute of Athletics in Brighton, Michigan. It's going to be an awesome podcast today. I have a fellow martial arts instructor joining me. Right before we get into it, I want to shout out Vet Life. Vet Life is a 501c3 nonprofit company. It's a company of veterans for veterans. Every veteran faces difficulties when transitioning from active duty back to normal civilian life, and Vet Life is there to ease that transition. The best way to reach out to Vet Life is to do so through Instagram or Facebook, or check out their website at vetlifetoday.org. So without further ado, I want to introduce, I knew you as Danielle Starr, but you're now married. It's Danielle Schell.
Correct.
Okay, and you know, I met you a long time ago. I think 7 or 8 years ago.
13. I don't know how old you were, but I was 13.
Yeah, and so how old are you now?
26.
So actually 13 years ago, I met you. That's incredible. And I knew you as a young girl that was in the martial arts world. And now, like, you sit across from me as the business owner that is, you know, teaching other people martial arts. It's great to see. So I want to take people all the way back. For the people that don't know you, let's go all the way back to childhood, Danielle. You know, were you born and raised here in Michigan? And, you know, was martial arts your introduction into sports and competition? You know, where did you start? Just kind of talk about your childhood, and then let's progress through the story about how martial arts became a big factor in your life.
Sure. So I actually have always been in Michigan, grew up in Royal Oak, like 5 minutes away from the Detroit Zoo, which was pretty cool. It was a weekend affair. But we moved to the Brighton area when I was about, I would say, 8 years old. From there, we probably tried like 12 sports. I mean, I say a dozen, my dad disagrees, but it was probably a dozen sports. And I got kicked out of one. It was ballet, believe it or not, because I had ADHD and ADD. So I got kicked out because there was like kids all be sitting down. I'd be running around the room like a, crazy person. And eventually my parents put me into martial arts that was like a hookup to like a gym. So there was like the gym where your parents could go and work out. And then there was like a little tiny room that had like karate going on. My parents put in there and told the master instructor that it'll probably only last a month. And that was the beginning of practically everything that came to where I am now. I mean, it was the beginning, the start, and still not the end.
Do you remember that first class? Like, did it make a strong enough impression on you that it stands out, or was it a process over time that you fell in love with martial arts?
It was definitely a process. I think my first recollection of actually being like in love was when I actually got to red belt in karate, because I remember a parent coming up to me and telling me, like, my kid looks up to you and comes only because you're here. And it was a shocker. It was, what do you mean? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm at this point maybe like 11. I have no idea what you're talking about. But that was the first instant where I realized, oh, okay, maybe I'm actually better at this than I thought I was. And for that sparked everything.
And then you might have started to view yourself differently, because for the first time you're like, wait a second, I'm the inspiration. It's not the people that I'm looking up to. Like, I'm the person that's inspiring someone else to continue on their journey. Do you remember the name of the gym or the name of the instructor or anything like that?
So yeah, it was Karate Kids, cute name. The master was Master James Myers. I actually have no idea who he is anymore or where he's at. He kind of vanished for me. I've been trying to contact him for so long because I'd love to see, look what he created. I mean, he's the beginning of the whole thing that is me. So, yeah, but that's all I know from him.
So you get into karate, you work up to red belt in the system. Do you continue growing through him all the way up to your black belt there, and then you move to another location? At what point did you switch to another instructor? Like, let's continue your journey. Sure. So you go in, you're young. You know, at first they were like, it's not going to last. She's going to be all over the place. But no, it didn't. It stuck with you.
Yeah.
So then how does that lead to the progression of your martial arts?
So I had an obsession. I went 5 to 6 days a week. Made my parents drive there, sick or flu, I don't care. Like, you're taking me. I went and got second-degree black belt in karate before I had asked my instructor that I wanted to do competitions. Like, I wanted to do something more, something bigger. And he just straight up said, no, like, we're not going to do it. And so from there, I kept bugging my parents about it, and my dad took me to watch a Taekwondo tournament. And I remember being very little, sitting there and saying, I can do that, to my dad. Like, I can definitely do that. I can beat them. I know I can beat them. And my dad being like, okay, well, let's find a place that works out for you. And that's when I started at F Martial Arts and absolutely hated it at first, believe it or not. there was such a progression of hard work that I wasn't used to that the competition level offered. I mean, it went from me being just a casual kid, kicking around, punching some stuff, and, you know, learning the discipline, to actually learning how to train. And that was a big, big difference.
Let's talk a little bit about your competitive career then. So now you start competing, and it's a whole different world, and it makes you learn so much about yourself. It makes you learn about struggle, about difficulty. Like you said, at first, all of a sudden, your like comfort zone was shattered a little bit, and you're going like, wait a second, this is terrible. This isn't what I love about it. But then you start to grow, right? Like most growth happens outside of the comfort zone. Everybody says that over and over and over, but not a lot of people pursue that. So let's talk about you as a competitor. What did that do for your mind, for your psychology? What tournaments, and, you know, just talk about your credentials as a competitor.
Yeah, so I started competing at 14, and instant love as soon as it happened. The training for me was the hardest part, but at the same time, it was the most rewarding part. Seeing myself get better through the training and showing that in the competitions was the coolest thing in the entire world. But I started to take up just like local tournaments and going there, and I got second place at my first tournament, and I was like, that's pretty dang good. I'm pretty proud of that. Like, we can do something with this. And from there, I mean, I just kept winning and started to, you know, get in the third places, you know, and then all of a sudden I became that little unstoppable girl that my instructor bragged about. At 16, I beat my own master. That was pretty fun. That was pretty cool. And the national champion at the time, I won't say any names, but the national champion, beat them both at the same time. And from there, I went to go to nationals, and I was won first place at states 8 years in a row. And it became just like this regular thing where I just would train my butt off from the sun up to sundown, go compete, bring home what I thought was good, and if it wasn't good, I'm working harder the next day. It was just a normal thing.
So explain to me, as an outsider from that area of competition, how in the world were you and your master in the same division? It was also a girl the same size, or boys same weight class, and you guys fought? So
a little bit different. I started with sparring, the normal fighting, the combat, and when I went to my first national tournament, so I'm backing up a little bit. I went to my first national tournament. I told my dad I didn't want to fight anymore. And I said, I kind of want to retire out of this. And I told him that I'm just going to place at this tournament at nationals. And he was like, okay, whatever you say. And then I'm done. And he was like, okay, you know, if that's what you want, that's what you want. So I ended up getting third place at nationals. And I was done with that, and I went to the competitive forms, or the katas, or the pumse, however.
Got it. So you weren't fighting in my mind, I'm literally picturing
Me
you
fighting.
as a little kid fighting your instructor,
No.
which in my mind was Jay Neff, who's a
Oh my
much
gosh.
bigger man. I'm going like, how in the world
He'd kill me. He's such a talented man.
So forms, you're competing in Pumse.
Yeah.
So you're basically demonstrating the form, and you got a higher tier than him.
Yes.
It makes so much more sense. Across the table, I was like, how I want to see these fight videos.
Yeah, no, fighting was just not my thing. It just really wasn't from the start. I loved it because everyone else knew I was good at it, and everyone else was very much like in my back of my head all the time, like, you got this, you have the flexibility, you have the strength, you have the speed, you have literally everything to make a perfect fighter. And I was like, thank you, but I don't really like it. So it was a constant push to want to be a fighter because everyone else wanted me to be a fighter. But I loved forms more, I loved Pumse more. I wanted to excel in that.
Got it. That makes sense. And again, I mean, being a fighter, you really have to desire to do that. Otherwise, the prospect of someone kicking you upside the face every day is not, you know, a desirable outcome for some people. You're more interested in the art of displaying, you know, through the forms, your mastery of your art, right? So now you start progressing, you're growing, you switch over to forms, you're winning all these state titles, you're getting recognition, but you're still just a top student at Neff's Martial Arts. Mm-hmm. So then somewhere, at least a conversation or something takes place where you ended up taking over Neff's Martial Arts. Because I remember that transition period. Talk us through that time of your life. How old were you? How did that get brought to you? Did they just hand over the keys and say, hey, good luck with the accounting and the information and file your taxes and good luck? Just describe that, because it's a wild jump, and I think a lot of people would be fascinated.
So definitely the hardest thing that happened ever in my entire life was taking over a company. But when that did happen, I was I was just graduated high school. I think I was just turning 19. And I had started my first year in college and was going through that process of, just normal college kid stuff. And I got asked, I think it was like a month before I was supposed to go to a national tournament to take over an entire company. And that made me destroy the entire tournament I went to. We flew out to Texas, did all this stuff, and I ended up not even getting on the leaderboard, to say the least, because the only thing I could think about was that, I had to grow up real quick. When that transition period happened, he basically asked me at first to take it, but under him. So run it, but run it under his rules, so that later, the progression could be like, I take it, but I kind of am getting the studio without having to pay for it with, all that. But I could not do it at all, period. When I started working under him, there was so much insight that I felt like I had, so much insight that even my parents had, because they were a big influence on the studio, that I knew how to market better. I knew how to do this better. I just felt like I knew more. And so we ended up buying it from him. And taking it over. And I think at that point, it was 2015, and I was about 20 years old.
Got it. So what were you going to college for at the time?
So I was going for kinesiology because I wanted to own a martial arts studio, just not this early.
So really, the stars kind of aligned. I mean, it just worked out. You were already on the path that you kind of saw that in your future. Describe to me, did Jay walk up to you one day and say, hey, do you want to be the owner of this place? I want to know more into that story. How do you go from your training, you're in the studio, you're going to college, and someone says, hey, you're going to run this? How did that actually take place?
Well, he knew that this is what I wanted to do my entire life. He knew that right off the bat, from the age of 8 years old, that I wanted to own a martial arts studio. But watching, he went to 3 other people before he came to me that were older and could probably run it at that time better than I could. And one of them you definitely know, Shane Merrim. Yeah, Shane was too busy at the time. He asked a couple other instructors that are actually now my heaven's sake, because they helped build what it is today. They're my instructors at my school. They asked them, but they have full-time jobs. So then he came to the small little girl and was like, you should do this. And I was like, I got to talk to my parents first, because that's a big commitment right there.
That is wild. So let's talk about you take over, right? You decide it's not really working where you're trying to follow his system. If you're going to do this, you've got to be able to have your freedom to express yourself, your creativity, your ability to market, your ability to steer the company in the direction that you see to be successful. What was that like at first? What were the good parts? What were the bad parts? And then how did the team start to grow? As of today, your studio is Limitless Martial Arts,
yes.
Right? But what was it originally when you took it over? Was it still Neff's when you took
Neff Martial Arts, yeah.
And then was there any name in between Neff's and Limitless?
Nope.
Got it. So you came up with Limitless.
Yes.
Okay, got it. So let's talk about that process where you start to be a business owner, talk about what your life looked like at that time. You're going to college, you're juggling your personal life, you're a business owner, you're trying to steer things the direction that you want, you're going to rebrand the team, you're going to, there's a lot taking place. Talk about that period of your life.
You ready to unbox this?
Ready.
This is a long story.
Ready.
So I actually was teaching beforehand at another martial arts school before this whole transition happened, because again, I just wanted to own a martial arts school. So I was teaching there, learning to teach, knew I was good at teaching. Right off the bat, kids loved me, parents loved me. I was like, cool, I found my thing. I know I'm good at this. I had the owners of that place tell me I was too immature to own a martial arts school and to do all this stuff. And I took it to heart. And I was like a little kid, so okay, I guess so. But that whole period was going through me not knowing anything about what I was doing, only knowing that I was good at teaching. So every time I came in there, I did only what I knew best, which was teaching. I could get kids in the door. I could get kids to where they needed to be. I could help with them. I could talk to kids better than sometimes their parents talk to them. I knew what I was doing. But the business side of it, I had no clue. So when it came to marketing, no idea. When it came to bills, no idea. Insurance, no idea. I mean, the basic things of cleaning, no idea. Hated cleaning, didn't want to do it. Never cleaned. Got yelled at constantly by my mother about it. But was just only focused on what I knew, which was teaching. And And it came down to me having to constantly remind myself that there is another whole like situation to this and another whole aspect to this that I didn't know how to do. My dad at the time, he owns a company as well. So he was going back and forth from his company to Limitless, back and forth to try and help me figure out how to own this place. And he was probably the reason there were so many people in the door, because he's just got that charismatic vibe to him. And he was just always talking to parents about, look at how awesome she is. Look at her, look at her. And it was so cool to see. And then when he got into his busy season, I was lost. No idea what to do. Students started dropping. I didn't know why, because I knew I was good at my job, but what was wrong with everything else? But it was the little things that I never, ever took into accountability. And that's when I met Ryan Anderchek, if you know who he is. He's up in Ohio. He owns Asian Sun up there, and he's got a big
I think
school.
I've heard of that name at some point, but I can't like picture him or anything to it. But I think I've heard of that name.
Yeah. He actually kind of took me under his wing a little bit and helped me figure out like what I was missing. And even with his guidance, I still didn't do what I was supposed to do. I was just so young. I just was like, I want to make time for me, and I'm the one that matters. The business doesn't matter, which is silly to say, but when you're 21, 22 years old, it's very hard to wrap your head around that you have priorities, and this place is going to shut down if you don't put in those priorities. And he helped me learn how to market. He taught me and my father how to, own this place. And he would walk around his studio one time, and I'll never forget it. It's a core memory in my brain. He walked around his studio and he pointed to every like little dirty thing on the floor, and he was like, okay, so our school is $150. Okay, $150 a month. And I was like, okay. And he goes, watch this. And he's like, follow me. And he walked around the entire school, and he goes, all right, 149, 148, 147, just pointing to like an empty water bottle, a tissue on the floor, a paper out of place. And all of a sudden he's getting like down to, the 30s and the 20s. And he goes, I would not open my school right now until everything was clean. And he goes, now I want you to go home and do that to your school. So I did it. We ended up getting down to like the 60s. And my dad was like, see, you know what you got to do, right? And I was like, yeah, I know. But that was the big thing for me, mostly, was the transition to figuring out how to be, the business side of everything, which is the most important side, because you can't open your doors if you don't know the business side versus what you already know you're good at. So that would be the main.
What made it finally click, though? Was it really that man, or like at what moment did you had all the information? It sounds like you had your dad giving you good influence. You had Ryan giving you information. You probably even knew a lot of the things. You just weren't like openly attacking the issues that were holding you back. What finally made that switch flip? And then how much different was your life, your business, your programs after you started to look at it from that, that third perspective, not through the eyes of the instructor? Hey, I'm doing the best I can out on the mat. When you took a step back and you said, I'm going to look at this thing as an overall like entity and make sure that, that it's top tier. What was it, that conversation? You went home, the light switch flipped, or what finally caused that? When you look back now, you go, you know what? That Danielle figured it out. Mm-hmm. That girl got it together. When did that take place?
So I have two. One of them, very recent, believe it or not. The other one, not so recent. I had a parent who was doing martial arts one time. And it's just going to be the weirdest switch you've ever heard, by the way. But they were doing martial arts, and I just hated working with adults because they were in their like 40s or 50s, and I've just felt like, respect your elders. Like I felt like I couldn't say anything, or I couldn't tell them what to do, and I couldn't go through with the process of like helping them, even like with like a low block, because I felt like, you're doing it right just the way you are because you're an adult. And he actually came up to me because I was watching him do something, and he goes, "You're intimidating me." And I was like, me? Like, really? Me? And it stuck with me for the rest of my life. I started acting different towards, like, the parents at the school, towards the adults. I was like, I can be intimidating. I never, ever expected that in my entire life. But the real shift actually happened with COVID. COVID was the biggest shift in my entire life. But do you want to get into COVID?
Hey, we can talk about whatever we want on the podcast. If you want to, let's go for it. I mean, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm pretty an unfiltered person.
Yes, no, I get it. So last year, by far the hardest for all businesses. I mean, including probably yours and mine. We shut down for a while and then we came back and, did what we had to do. But during that time, that progression, when we opened up in June. We opened up early like you guys did. You opened up earlier than us, but we opened up in June. Yeah.
Do you remember the date?
No, not at all.
Yeah, mine was May 1st. I put out a video. On April 14th, I made the decision. On May 1st, I said, all right, we're done. And it's ironic because once the legislation about 6 months later looked back, they deemed that our governor's orders, our executive orders, were null and void from May 1st on. And it happened to be the day that I put out the video and was like, you know what? Enough. So it's funny that date happened to match up. But you're still super ahead of the curve. I mean, in June, people were still running around terrified. I mean, some people still are to this day.
For sure.
You know what I mean? I still am seeing people outside alone in the fresh air wearing a mask on, and I'm going like...
Or the people in their cars.
Yep. Double masked.
Yeah.
Terrified. And you know what? I don't even hold it against the people because they're just truly convinced that they should be that afraid.
Yeah.
But that's a scary world to live in. So talk about your experience through COVID, how it changed you, how it reshaped the business. Like just I mean, it was a great reset. It was time to have to reflect. It was time to look back and see where you were, and you had to slow down for a minute.
Yeah.
It's like the mouse had to get out of the wheel and just go like, wait a second, why am I running in this circle? So talk about that part of your life. So
2020 was, everyone thinks they have had their hardest year, but then you really get your hardest year. And that was my hardest year. Right from the beginning of 2020, I had a good friend of mine that passed away. That was really tough for me. That put me down to like with the school shutting down and that happening, it was just down in the dumps for me. And nobody said anything, which was kind of nice at the time. They didn't like try to come up to me and tell me like, hey, like, are you okay? Like, do you need this? They knew that I was going to figure this out some way or another and get through it. But during that time, we got an eviction notice. Yeah, Limitless was supposed to shut down. During that time, we got a straight up eviction notice. And it was a decision that me and my dad had to put together, like, are we going to reopen? And it was one of those things where it finally hit me. I have to work hard. Like, I have to put in the work in order to keep these doors open so this never happens again. Like, this was, like, it was almost a reality between, yeah, you're a good instructor, but you're not a good business owner. And there's the proof right in front of your face. You have an eviction notice because you couldn't take care of your business for 2 months. Like that was almost felt so bad for me, but I mostly felt bad for my students because I looked at them and I'm like, that's my fault. Like, it's not your fault. You guys are working just as hard. You guys are paying me. You guys are going through the process, but I'm the one that's putting you all down in the dumps. And that was that switch. That switch was that eviction notice to that I had to get to work. So when we were shut down for those 2 months, right off the bat, online classes. Did the online classes, hated every single moment of them. I think everyone did. You can't correct people online. You can't. I'm sorry. Especially with martial arts. You can't correct people online. But did what you got to do and got through that. And then we opened back up in June. And the first thing I did was I decided to work on myself. I didn't decide to work on the school. I decided to work on my own brain. And it was definitely comes from my husband. My husband was like, hey, your head's not in the right spot from everything that's going on. You need to take some time and definitely focus on, how you can improve as a person. So I took that upon myself to make sure that I was putting almost just during that time, because there was nothing going on, doing online classes. And then when you open, you're really not doing much either because people are slowly tinkering back in. So he put equal amount of I put equal amount of work in myself than I did my business. So just normal things like exercising, eating right, the normal things. But then also like, thinking about what I'm doing, thinking about how I can, improve everything about me. Do I keep my house clean? It was such a simple task. Do I cut the lawn? But it was like normal things like that because I would walk into my own doors of my house and it'd be a mess. And I'd realize that is it's showing me what my brain feels like. So I would make that movement to wake up in the morning, exercise as soon as I woke up in the morning. I remember I would read a little bit, and then I would take time to get ready, and then I'd clean my entire house. So that when I came home, I could be like, okay, look there's no clutter here, so there's no clutter in my brain. So now the clutter's all at the school. I go to the school, take care of the clutter. And it was just a stretch back and forth, back and forth. When that happened, when I started really taking that time to focus on me, equal amounts with my school, the school started to show for it. As soon as I started cleaning up at my house, I started cleaning up at the studio. And like religiously cleaning up at my house. Like to the point where I asked my parents for Christmas if I could get a vacuum. I said, can I get one of those vacuums that you can just charge? Because I want to clean up in between classes. And everyone was like, you want to clean up in between classes? Since when? Since when do you want to clean up in between classes? But I was like, no, I have to. I have to, because I need people to walk in and feel like this, first off, clean environment. We just got through COVID. I need it still clean. B, I want everyone to feel clear when they come into an environment. I mean, if it's cluttered, it just looks bad, and it just like my brain felt like. So I would clean every day. I started usually doing desk work like nobody's business. I worked way less on the mats, less teaching, let my instructors do practically almost everything, because I needed to defocus. I said, okay, I don't want to learn how to do this, but I'm going to learn how to do this. I'm done. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to sit down at my desk, and I'm going to work. And for a whole year, whole 2020, I don't know how many times I taught on that mat, which was very different for me. That was a whole year of me not doing 100% the thing I love to do, because I had to focus on the thing that I didn't know how to do, so that the thing I love to do could get better. So I started to work on that desk work, do everything that I needed to do for that. And over time, people just started coming through the door. The studio was clean. The instructors got better. The debt that got paid off, I don't know if I want to say this, we were in debt. We were in bad debt. The eviction notice got cleared, obviously. But people started going through the door like crazy. And I noticed right at then that was a reflection of me. That was a reflection of the hard work that I was putting in. Right at the end of 2020, I started to lose it, but I started to go back to my bad habits, I guess would be the best way to put that, where I wasn't taking care of myself. I was still taking care of the studio, not myself. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the studio wasn't getting as many people in the door. And it was just like a switch. And I remember having like a talk, not with my dad, but with my husband, and being like what do I do? And he goes, well, you're not working hard enough. I'm like, okay, thank you. Like, I needed to hear that. I needed someone to hold me accountable for my actions, because you're not working hard enough. You got lazy. And then, obviously me with my sarcasm was like, can you blame me? I've been working so hard for like a year. And he's like, yeah, but look at what's happening. Like, don't get stopped now. Now it's 2021. We got through the COVID. And now that switch is here. You got through that. You know what you have to do. So why are you, don't break that. Keep that line going. But back to COVID, if you want to talk about just like what we did.
Well, I mean, the period in general, you went through extreme reflection.
Oh, yeah.
Can you pinpoint anything that you know in your own psychology or something that was causing all of those things? Because you had extreme reflection and you're now on the other side of that. But can this Danielle look back at the other Danielle and know why those, like you weren't living to your potential? Because it might unlock a little bit of a secret for other people. There's a lot of people in this life that are living well below their potential.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what it was for you?
So a couple things. Biggest thing was being a competitor my whole life. You're always told what to do, how to train. You should eat right. You should do all this. They go through the process of being like, you need to do this. Like, if I'm going to put you through a workout, if I'm going to put you through a class, I am 100% telling you what we're doing step by step by step. I was so used to that I had to learn how to tell myself what to do. And once I realized that was the problem, there was always this little voice that came into the back of my head that was telling me all the time, like, even like during like working out, where it's like you got to keep going, don't stop, you have to go, like, or right when I go to leave the school, like, did you vacuum? No, go back. And I'd have to like almost coach myself in my own head to tell myself what to do. Otherwise, it wasn't getting done. It wasn't me going through the routine, because obviously I don't like the routine. But to create the routine religiously, I had to coach myself to do that routine. So it was a win-lose, double-edged sword. But the one that I liked the more, the one side of the sword that was a little bit softer, was myself, outside of someone else, telling me that, you're not doing too well. This isn't working out. Like, you have to work hard. And so I was like, okay, I gotta be that person in the back of my head, or be my dad, be my mom, be my husband in the back of my head, just saying like, hey, you can. What's stopping you? Like, what is that bridge? Who's the troll under it that's making you stop? You're your own troll. So you have to figure out how you can get rid of your own troll to make it on the other side of that bridge.
Sounds like accountability.
Sounds like accountability.
Right. It's a good thing to discover within yourself that you have the ability to hold yourself accountable. So yeah, let's touch into the COVID thing further, because it did obviously shake up the world. But I feel like now more than ever, people are probably desiring martial arts. They're desiring community. They're desiring exercise and taking care of their physical and mental health. They want to be in a better place. So have you experienced extreme growth since COVID? Not just because of the actions that you did, but have you found people are coming to you now, like needing martial arts in their life, not even just wanting them, being like, listen, I have to be a part of this to keep myself going in the right direction? And then how has your school adapted since COVID? Like, do you follow any of the restrictions? Do you put masks on your people or anything?
I do. I know you're not going to like that.
No, hey, it's your studio, not mine.
So I think people see perception as reality. And I know I say that like all the time to my instructors. And I say that all the time to my students. Do we wear them all the time? No, not at all. But when there's people in the building that maybe feel a certain way, I'm like, fine. I guess it's fine. My sparring team, I don't make them wear masks. There's no physical way that I can allow them to do what they do on a daily basis, wearing those things, restricting themselves. I can't. Like, I would feel almost mean doing it to them. But for my little kids, sure, I'll let them wear it because it makes the parents happy. It makes them happy. I mean, I used to, when COVID first became a thing, I used to walk around my school and purposely clean in front of people so that I, knew people, so I could be like, look what we're doing. We're cleaning just for you. And I used to do that all the time. I'd clean the mats, like as soon as classes were over, so people that were leaving, I could, look what I'm doing. I'm cleaning the mats. But it's all perception. It was all perception at that point. Like, me going around being like, yeah, I'm going to put hand sanitizer on all the time. It's not helping your kid, but it's helping your brain. And if that helps your brain, then I'll do it 500 times. I don't care. I'll do it till my hands are dry. But in the end, like, this is something that over time is not going to go away if you're not going to let it go away. And in the end, I mean, what's the point? There really was no point. My team was the only people that I never really made them wear masks. They find it hilarious. They wear masks until people leave the room, and then I yell, all clear, and then they take them off, and then they're like, throw them across the room, or we bring out a garbage can and run around, and they take them off and they continue running. But they constantly complained about them, so it was one of those things that I couldn't do anymore. Couldn't do it.
That makes sense. So you were really just trying to cater to people that, may have been bothered by it because they come in and now all of a sudden think you're putting them in danger because you're not wearing a mask. Where you're like, listen, like, the world's not more toxic than it was 5 years ago. Your television told you to be terrified. Like, we don't live in this new hostile world that if you don't wear a double mask in your car, you're going to crash. Like, but there's a lot of fear, right? There's a lot of fear floating around, and we're trying to do the best we can to keep people at least going in a positive direction, right? Like, irrefutably, it's good to exercise. It's good to be around people. It's good to be a part of a community. It's good to leave your home. It's good to, not obsessively have to worry about everything. So we're trying to keep people on that path while still fitting within some people's perception as reality, right?
Yeah, but no one's getting sick. And I work with kids for a living. I should be getting sick all the time. All the kids should be getting sick. When I first opened my school, I got tonsillitis 3 times. I got bronchitis twice. And I had the flu every other 2 months or something. It was ridiculous. And now I haven't been, knock on wood, I haven't been sick in 2 years. That's weird.
My girlfriend actually has an autoimmune disorder. She's just a genetic thing where she basically does not have an immune system. So this woman lived in the most terrifying fear. Like I actually stayed here for 6 weeks when COVID first happened here in the dorm because I was so like, I got to figure this thing out. I need to know what's going on. I started calling all the doctors I knew, nurses. I was like, I need to figure out what's going on. So I avoided my girlfriend completely for thinking like, well, I'm going to make sure that she's safe. She got COVID. She literally felt off. A woman with no immune system who is like the primary, like this should
be in the hospital.
Based on the media's assessment, like she is the prime target that should be taken out. She literally had like a slight headache and felt down for 2 days. Boom, gone. She was so mad. Like, are you kidding me? I lived my life for 8 months or a year petrified of what happens if I get this virus that's spreading around. And she's like, it wasn't even in the realm of a standard flu. Yeah. Of sicknesses that I've experienced, like the tons that you just listed off, back to back to back throughout your life. She's like, she was almost just like, this is bullshit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because her life had changed so dramatically. She was getting groceries delivered. She was wiping things down. She was doing all of these activities.
Because the media.
Yeah. And the reality just didn't match it.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, exercise, eat healthy, take your vitamins. Do the things that you should do that are on the norms of being healthy. And in the end, your body will repay you during times like this.
And I mean, if we care about people, because that's the image that's been projected from the media, is that the government loves you and cares about you. So they want you to stay safe and be safe. Let's clean up the food in this country. Let's get people to stop drinking so much alcohol. Let's ban cigarettes. There's a million things that plague this society that we could easily change, but they generate a ton of money, so we don't change them. But wait a second, if we care about people and we're trying to make healthier human beings, I've got some ideas, right? There's a lot of things. So at the end of the day, in my opinion, the media is more of a scary virus than the virus that you may or may not encounter from a friend of yours. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, there's people that weren't seeing their grandparents, that like weren't going to see their family members, that were, completely restructuring their lives, not hugging their loved ones, couples being with just each other wearing masks. It's like the thinking was just gone for that period.
Yeah, so, it was people stopped using their brains and started listening to everyone else around them. I mean, I remember I saw a guy mowing his lawn. He had a decent-sized lawn with a mask on. And I'm like, dude, like, what are you... Who are you hiding? Is the grass going to get you? Like, I didn't know what was going on.
It's just, you know what? I'm so thankful that we're starting to close this book.
Yes.
And we can all look back and tell these, like, when we're grandparents talking to kids one day, they're never going to believe it. They're never, like, if you went back to 2015 and you tried to describe what 2020 was going to be like, they would lock you up.
They'd laugh, too.
Yeah.
They'd just be like, you're crazy, write a book.
They'd be like, we're putting you away somewhere.
Like, what book did you read? Is this a novel? Can I go get it?
100%, because it's almost hard to believe, but yet it swept our culture in the blink of an eye, right? But luckily, I do feel, and you probably do as well, that we're starting to come out of it. We're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Unfortunately, because of vaccines, though.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's the reason. Well, here's a question for all the vaccine people. We already know the virus mutates. There's already tons of different strains of it. Why do you have to get a flu shot every year?
Just
because
the flu.
it's against a specific strain.
Yeah.
And when that flu mutates, you have to get the next strain. Mm-hmm. Is the coronavirus not going to mutate?
Apparently not.
It already is.
Yes.
So, I mean, unless you're planning to just get a flu shot and a COVID shot for the rest of your life, you're going to have to trust your immune system.
Yeah.
You're going to have to clean up your lifestyle. You're scared of COVID, but you're in line at McDonald's, you're drinking alcohol, you're not exercising. There might be a better way.
Yeah, you're a little too late. You can take the mask off.
There might be a better way. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, like, I don't even think the vaccine changes anything, because there's going to be variants, and there's going to be a period of time that immunity lasts. And I mean, it's probably just more fear perpetuation from the media, but they're trying to say that immunity might only last for 90 days. Well, if your natural immune system's only producing that, a vaccine is a synthetic replication of the immune process. So, like, if your immune system's not going to protect you, that vaccine is not going to protect you. We just have to do better. We just have to do better.
I got the vaccine.
You got it.
I did.
You are vaccinated.
Unfortunately.
No, hey, it's a choice thing.
Again, it's just perception. I figured right down from the beginning of it that, it's not going to hurt me. I can get the vaccine. It's not going to hurt me. I'm young. I'm healthy. I do what I got to do. It won't hurt me. But if I can tell you, which doesn't make any sense, I got the vaccine so that you feel better about it, but I'm the one being affected, sure, I'll get it.
I can understand. And at the end of the day, I have friends that are vaccinated, and I have friends that say, like, you will have to line me up in a firing squad for me to get it. And honestly, at the end of the day, it should be your choice. You know what I mean?
It should be. I mean, the whole thing going on right now saying that, like, well, we'll only open things up if you get it. That's an enforcement. You can't do that. You can't enforce something like that.
I already hear discussions that, like, oh, you want to go to a concert or go on a cruise ship or attend a public event, you will have to be vaccinated. I really hope the country doesn't move in that direction, because we were born and taught the ideas of freedom, of like this idealistic country that we were supposed to work and fight towards. And throughout human history, we've gotten better in so many different ways. Like, are we a perfect society? No. Are there a lot of things that need to get better? Yes. But are we doing better than they were in the 50s? For sure. We are more accepting of people than any time in history, more accepting of beliefs, more accepting of colors. And a lot of people don't want to recognize this, but we've definitely made extreme progress. But if you start getting to the point where you're going to tell someone that you're not allowed to participate in society unless you follow our medical suggestions and guidelines and requirements, that's going to take us down a dark road, in my opinion, because people's body is like a lot of the things that people will take a stance on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They might back down on some things, but when it comes to your body, it should be your choice,
100%.
right? Like, you should be able to stand firmly that, like, no, I have an immune system. I am in that healthy demographic. I have taken care of myself. You will not force a medical procedure upon me without my permission.
And I had someone make a really good point to me yesterday that you'd probably like. If they're going off the percentages to open things up, right, of people who got vaccinated, what about the people who already had COVID? Shouldn't they be included?
Shh, be quiet. Stop thinking rationally. Danielle,
I'm sorry.
They're going to come after you now.
That would make sense, though, right?
100%.
It's the same thing. It's taking the vaccine without taking the vaccine.
Oh, my God. I think we got one. I think we got a thinker here. We need a quick shut this down. 100%. Which I've had COVID, and tons of people that I know have had COVID, why would you not count in the percentage? You've literally had the same experience, and you've produced the antibodies.
You've had it more than the vaccine did.
You got the natural response.
Exactly. Your body fought it and won it.
Your body said, hey, I learned this thing. Don't worry, we got it, coach. We're all set here.
But instead, put it in my arm so that I can force have it. It doesn't make any sense.
Honestly, there's just no logic in most of the things. If you look at any of the COVID incidents, and because some people come up and be like, hey, you know what's funny? And I'm like, all of it. You don't have to cite a certain thing. Pretty much anything within this COVID event is wild if you dig into it.
Yeah.
So, like, we just need to get back to being like, hey, you have the freedom to make the choices that make you feel happy. And I respect and support your ability to do that.
Yeah. That's
like what freedom and respect and love is all about. You know what I mean? You should be able to live life on your terms, and you should respect my desires to do the same. You know, so let's shift off COVID, or we'll talk about this for the rest of the podcast. 100%. We could probably do a full podcast just on that alone. Let's talk a little bit about your goals, right?
Yeah.
So now you're a business owner. You're reflecting. You're bringing yourself to new levels that you haven't been before. You've discovered accountability didn't have to come from the outside, but it actually can come from within. What do your goals look like as, a martial arts instructor, as a business owner, as a competitor, any of these things?
Multiple things. First off, with my own brain, I want to keep going on that process. I feel like I didn't reach the final destination. Like, I started the journey, but I didn't reach the main goal. And so I definitely want to put myself in comfortable positions like I am right now. This is a little uncomfortable for some people. I know, can you imagine, right? But putting myself in those types of positions so that, I can say that I did them. And over time, that's just something I can put into the back of my brain. Like, hey, you may have not be able to get through this, but you got through that. And that's really cool. So working on my mindset, definitely being one of them still to this day. Learning to use that person in the back of my head that's telling me what to do and telling me that I should do it, and not listening to the bad side of everybody's brain that tells you, doesn't matter, don't do that. I am happy to say that the studio is better than it was before COVID because of that. It was better than it was the first year, the second year, the third year. I mean, we'd opened 4.5 years, almost 5 years, I think we're coming up on, and it's better than it's ever been. It was really cool because I remember my dad calling me, and he was like, hey, I delivered the rent check like 2 weeks early. And I was like, really? And he's like, isn't that exciting? Like, what do you want? Do you want new bags? Do you want new kick pads? Like, and I was like, what do you mean? Like, you're so excited. And he's like, well, we can do that stuff now. Like, you did that. And I was just like ecstatic. And it ended up becoming to the part where like, he was telling my husband, not me, but my dad being like, telling him how proud he was of me and stuff like that. But he didn't really tell me, unfortunately, but he would tell him all the time. He'd be like jumping up and down, excited about like things that I'm accomplishing. And that means I knew that I was doing something right. But that would be the main, like where we're at now. I have stronger instructors now because we went through, like the craziest thing in the entire world. We went through having to teach kids online and having to adapt to reteaching kids because, you have a curriculum when you teach martial arts or when you teach any type of thing, like your step ones, your step twos. And I mean, if you're gone for 2 months, especially younger kids, it's gone. It's gone. You're reteaching them from point A, point B. So I had stronger instructors because we had to come back and teach all the kids all the new things from there. And I just want to have a stronger team now. So now I'm looking really forward to having a team. Now that definitely I have Shane there as well. And Shane's been very helpful teaching me how to work with kids' brains and their mindset and their mental. Because as you know, probably of all people, competition it's all mental. It's all mental. You can have every physical aspect in the world and your mental can mess you up in the end. I mean, in the end, I could kick straight up in the air and as strong as possible and knock you out. But if I tell myself I can't, I'm not going to. But that was the big thing. I wanted my students to grow. I wanted my team to get better. I wanted them to dominate. I really do. I just want them to go places and show that they can take over and do things just with their own brains telling them that they can. And Shane taught me that. I'm really good at getting people into shape. I was really good into getting them just their basic foundation skills. That was like my go-to as a kid. And Shane's really good at getting to that part of their brains that I didn't know existed, that self-doubt. So now we're at that with our kids, and they're starting to show such amazing improvement over a short period of time just because they're started believing in themselves. And they're excited now to come to class, and they'll get kicked in the face, like straight up, just like kicked to the face, and they could be gushing blood, and they're like high-fiving the person that did it, and they're like, that was a good kick, and I'm like, that's so weird, where was that a year ago? That's so different. But it's because they're like, hey, you improved, even though I ate it, you improved, and that's pretty cool. But that with all my students, I just want to give them the same opportunity that I taught myself at a young age, because that's what martial arts is. Martial arts is half discipline and half mental. I mean, it really is. It's I'm going to teach you to kick, but in the end, are you obeying your parents? So that's it.
No, it makes sense. I mean, as a person that's probably trained the most successful professional fighters in the state of Michigan, I'll tell you, it is mental. The people that come in these doors that are now fighting on the UFC, fighting all over the world, fighting in every country on earth, like making tons of money, are not. They're just people. They're not some crazy gifted. They levitated in the building, and then you know what I mean. And it was like, I am here to be the best in the world. Like you just saw Alicia Zapatel out on the mat.
Yeah,
she came in as a 1-in-1 amateur from another gym with a wrestling background. She is now the #1 girl professional fighter on earth. She's just out there training like everybody else. It's in here.
It's 100% in your brain.
I mean, you need the environment to bring out the best in you. You need to tap in a potential that's within yourself. Guides can help. Great instructors can help. But really, the mental side of the game is what separates champions from just being good. Champions know they're meant to be champions, So
it's in their blood, and you can see it in their brain, how they process things, how they accomplish things. I mean, I'll touch on one thing. I have an amazing student who, when she did her first tournament ever, she won her first match. It was unbelievable. And I was coaching her in the chair, and she sat down, and she goes, I can't do the other one. I can't do it. And it was for first place. And I was like, oh. So I took that in, and I was like, okay, let's think about this. If you don't want to, then we'll stop right now. Okay, I'll throw it in the towel. You'll take it. But I said, but you need to tell me right now, was that the best you performed today? And she said, she thought about it, and she said, well, it was the best I performed then. And I was like, wait, but I mean like today. Are you going to go home and be happy with what you did today? And she said, no. And I go, okay, then you have a choice to make. You have a choice whether you're going to step onto there and say, that self-doubt in my brain's gone, or you're going to tell yourself that I can do this. That girl's first tournament, she went up against a black belt. She wasn't even a black belt yet. She went up against a black belt, and she won she lost by 1 point in the final, like, overtime match. And she came out hugging. She's like, I lost, like, all sad. And I was like, you won. Like, you don't even realize how much your brain just worked to tell yourself you couldn't do it, and then you could. And then you came out of there and you lost in the final overtime match by 1 point. That's a win in my book. That is 100% a win. You should go home smiling and happy, the best you've ever been. Now she's crazy good. I'm kind of scared for her.
And honestly, knowing it's okay to fail.
Yes.
I'll tell you what, you want to be a champion in life, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
Just accept it.
You
Just
have
know
to.
that you are going to fail without a doubt. So if you're not willing to have that failure, you will not reach your potential. It's not possible. You can't do it.
It's the same for business.
100%. So when you take those failures, if you can turn them into lessons, if you can take insight from that, or even just get knocked down and go, you know what, these are the areas I can step up, you'll be more proud of the fact that you went out there and gave your best than just wins and losses. All you care about is, did I give my best effort? Did that help me become the person I'm supposed to be? Did that take me to a new level that I might not have even known was possible?
Yeah.
So that's what you witnessed that girl experience on that day. The fact that she walked out to the mat on that final match was way more important than the result.
Yes.
Way more important. Just stepping out on that mat, she conquered something within. You know what I mean? An opponent is very secondary. It's a moment. It's a blip of time. You have this quick little. You need an adversary to be able to have a competition, but really you're fighting with yourself. Mm-hmm. You're trying to find things within yourself that are going to make you what you're capable of becoming. And that's an amazing process to witness. It's an amazing process.
It's one of the few that keeps us in the business that we are today, because it's just martial arts is such an unbelievable thing that's filled with the confidence you see from just people that want what you have, when you know the struggle that comes with it. You know that, thank you for wanting to be me, but in the end, it comes with the ups and downs, the hardships, the mountains, all of it.
And really, we should be working as a society to get things like the martial arts to be more of a norm, right? So like back when the Bruce Lee movies were big, it like had a cultural revolution, and then Muhammad Ali and like certain people transcend society and like push the needle in a direction, like towards martial arts, towards boxing, towards jiu-jitsu, towards whatever it is. But we need to work to get people to realize how beneficial martial arts are for you, because like you're doing this internal work that it's not just what you are on the mat. Right?
Yeah.
By becoming a martial artist, it will spill over into everything you do in your life, especially if you're facing adversity on a regular basis, because life is adversity. So you've seen it probably from young kids to elderly people benefit from martial arts, because all the work that's being done, like all of my instructors here said, we have 19 coaches here. They know that like the magic is happening in here.
Yes.
Martial arts is just the vehicle that you use to get to your potential. With that being said, how do you think we reach the next generation? Because you have kids that are now living in the virtual worlds. Instagram is where it's at. TikTok. I don't even know all the new things. Like I don't have a TikTok. I never had a Snapchat. I don't have those things. But we're going to a new generation where technology controls kids' lives, and we need to keep them in things that are like foundations for success, such as martial arts and other aspects of life. How do you think we reach this next generation? Because you're a little bit younger than I am, and it's going to be a whole new demographic that we're going to have to show, hey, the life lessons that you will pull from this mat are worth the time that you need to invest.
I think it needs to be in schools. I think that's the main thing here. And I'll ask you a question, and I feel like you'll answer perfectly. If your kid can't swim, what do you do?
Yeah, you get them swimming lessons.
Yeah. Okay, well, if your kid needs to learn how to drive, what do you do?
Get them driving lessons.
If your kid can't defend himself, what do you do?
Get them lessons in self-defense.
It's just the main thing. It's real-world scenarios that happens. I mean, you see it all the time, and it just needs to be a normal thing that happens. We all should learn just the basic stuff. I know how to kick. I know how to punch. I know what to do when someone grabs me like this. Like, do that. Do it not for you. Do it for the generation of kids that's coming up. Because the last thing we need is like, the kids are so naive. Social media is out there. Everyone can post whatever they want anywhere. They'll say, hey, I'm home alone right now, and they'll post it a million places. But yet you didn't decide to put your kids into something that can help them defend themselves if someone walks through the back door, opens up the window. That's wrong. That is internally wrong to me. Teach your kids to be self-sufficient. Teach your kids to learn how to defend themselves from bad situations so that you can go and put them into this new world that's crazy and be confident that at least they know something. You don't want to be the worst case scenario. I mean, no, there's not a single person that I know that would want to watch someone get harmed. But yet, you're not doing anything to help them, like in the situation.
Now, here's a question that I don't know how you answer, but you as a woman, especially in being in Taekwondo, you're in one area of the martial arts, which is like a small piece of the puzzle. Mm-hmm. But looking at like the desire for self-defense, do you ever think about branching out into like jiu-jitsu, wrestling? Like, because like Taekwondo is very sport-based, but like overall, you know, not as much for like a real, like if I got a basic high school wrestler, they will give most Taekwondo people an extremely difficult situation because they're specialized at getting them into a world that's different. It's different. You're not, all the kicks in the world won't help you on the mat. Do you think as an instructor that is going to be leading our community towards the future that you should branch out and experience the other martial arts? Or because I have a different perspective than you, but it's a very, very small avenue and it only translates slightly to self-defense and taking care of yourself versus there's other martial arts that as a whole would be much more effective. Do you think that it's something that you could branch out to and expand your horizon to be able to provide a better thing of self-defense? Or is it like, you know what, I can get them started on the road to like finding what martial arts are for them and they can branch out if that's their desire?
So funny story. I actually wanted to branch out into a different martial art for my 25th birthday and then COVID hit. I wasn't sure which one I was going to do, but I think as I got older, you know, Taekwondo was really cool. I liked the sport. The sport was really fun. But as I got older, I was like, oh, I need to get to know this real world stuff a little more. Like, I mean, I got some of it. I got some of it from other people, other martial artists and other arts. But I was like, I want to actually excel. Like, let me come in with a white belt on my body and start over from point blank one. Like, that's really what I wanted. And then COVID hit and I couldn't.
That's actually amazing to hear. That's how Juan and I started our relationship. Mm-hmm. Juan was a 4th degree black belt at the time, a master that was known. I mean, he won nationals at a black belt for sparring. I mean, he's extremely high level, and yet he was willing to go find out what's this jiu-jitsu stuff. I choked him out in like 15 seconds our first match, and he went, I've spent my entire life doing a martial art, and a guy much younger than me just effortlessly made me give up in like 15 seconds. And then instead of being upset about that experience, he went, I'm going to start over. And he had that mentality. He literally went, I'm going to add this to my resume. I'm going to be a beginner again in this aspect because it will only benefit me as a martial artist. And that's amazing to hear from you because a lot of traditional martial artists do not have that mindset.
No.
They become, you know, successful and, you know, strong in one area. So their psychology is like, wait a second, I don't want to go back to having someone that, you know, if I put them under this specific rule set of Taekwondo, I'll crush them. I don't want to see what would happen if they get a hold of me and take me down. You're in the mindset of, you know what, I can grow again. The same growth that you experienced through Taekwondo, you could experience through kickboxing, through jiu-jitsu, through wrestling, through mixed martial arts. And now all of a sudden, the Danielle that found potential in one area could be reborn even better, like the story of the Phoenix. You know, you're going to go back you're going to go back to the ashes. You come in and like go with just a white belt girl of jiu-jitsu that's got more training than you. She's going to make you feel so unbelievably helpless and strangle you against your will.
That's okay.
And you're going to go, you know what? And now I'm getting better. The same way that when you first walked on the Taekwondo mat, you weren't the best, but that didn't matter. It was the progress that mattered. Mm-hmm. So like that's a beautiful mindset. Not many traditional martial artists have that. Most traditional martial artists, as soon as they get into the black belt mentality, it's like, how can I be a beginner again?
It's an ego thing. It really is. Once you start to get those degrees on your body, and especially when you start owning a school, you're like, this is me. This is all I know. This is the top dog. But in the end, just like if you become a doctor, you're not just a doctor. You're a doctor in A, are you a doctor in B? Are you a doctor in C? And it's like, I don't want to just be a doctor in A because that can't help me if I don't know B, C, and D. So, yeah, no. Did I ever tell you my jiu-jitsu story?
You have not.
So, funny story. I tried jiu-jitsu. I was really little, though. And I didn't like it at first at all. But you know why? Because I had to grapple Shane. And Shane dripped sweat in my mouth. And that was my first day at jiu-jitsu. And so I wasn't too fond of going back into it. But I always had told somebody, like, I wasn't sure if I'd like it again. I was always willing to try again. There's to me, like, I can't say that what I dictated when I was a little kid dictates what I feel now. But Krav Maga, I love the idea of Krav Maga. I love the idea of jiu-jitsu. I love the idea of even like Wing Chun. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. That thing's crazy, weird. I love it. I want to be able to start over. I don't care if there's a belt at my body at this point because it doesn't matter. The belt truly just shows how long I've been to it. It doesn't show me that I'm amazing. I actually had a guy tell me a very long time ago that just because you have a master's in something doesn't mean you're a master at everything. And I loved that. And I put that 100% towards my belt from day one. Just because I have 4 degrees on my belt, that doesn't mean that I can show you everything. That doesn't mean that I'm amazing. It means I'm going to stutter my words. I'm not going to know what you say because it's years. It's not experience. It's years. And over time, I mean, I hope I can learn more, not just for myself. I mean, later on, it can go to my students, but right now, as a beginner, it would be cool to start over and, learn something.
Well, I know a jiu-jitsu place with a ton of really successful women that when it's time and you say, hey, you know what? I want to be
What's the name of that place?
It might be the Michigan Institute of Athletics Scorpion Fighting System.
Never heard of them.
But no, 100%, girl. I mean, you already are a leader in the martial arts community, and the better that you are as a martial artist in general, which is the ability to defend yourself in all situations and to have the mentality of a martial artist, right? The more successful you are with that, the better of a leader you're going to be. And, it's just going to continue to grow your brand and your business and everything like that. So, man, 100%, whenever you decide that you would like to do some jiu-jitsu, reach out to me. No, for real. Like,
no, I get it.
I'll give you like a free month because you are an instructor that is a leader that I know for a fact that if you see the value in something else, you're going to add it to your life and your training, and then that's going to make you more efficient and effective for other people. So just anything else that you want. By the way, we've already been over an hour.
Oh, geez, really?
You were like nervous, like, oh, I'm going to stutter, I'm going to do these things.
See,
we have had an hour of almost flawless dialogue, back and forth. No problem.
I know. I'm just a nervous wreck all the time.
No, so
unless I'm teaching.
If there's anything else that you want to cover in this moment in time to capture on the podcast forever, we'll record it. Any other story you want to tell, and if not, it was a pleasure having you here today.
Thank you. I mean, I can't think of anything unless you can think of something.
No, I said.
I wanted to give you like mad props for having classes during the day and like in the morning, because you have something that like a totally different aspect of like schools don't have. Schools like martial arts schools do not have classes open in the morning for the small amount of people that work late at night, like I do. So that I give you props because literally could not find anything else.
Yeah, we have 6 a.m., we have 9 a.m., we have noon, we have evening classes like every single day and weekends. So, I mean, literally 19 coaches. Whether you say, hey, I'm going to train jiu-jitsu, but I can only do it in the mornings, we have it. I want to train kickboxing, we have it. So, and that'll come with time with you too. You'll see like as you build, the dream builds and different doors open up. And the next thing you know, you go, maybe we do implement this. Maybe we put this onto the schedule, and that's like kind of.
I mean, isn't that why like most schools are called? They don't put like jiu-jitsu under their name, or they put something else under their name. They put martial arts because in the end, like no one, at least in my opinion, no one wants to be just a just a jiu-jitsu school or just a Taekwondo school or just a karate school. I mean, granted, it is a marketing scheme that we put karate or martial arts under everything because no one knows what the other things are. But you want to make well-rounded people.
My goal is really, at least in this community, to get people to view martial arts as one thing. Like, I want people to realize, like, imagine if you were a power lifter, but you only worked on your biceps. Like, that wouldn't make sense. You would have massive biceps. But it's like, don't just train Taekwondo, train jiu-jitsu, train wrestling, train boxing, train kickboxing, and you have fully rounded yourself. Just like, don't only look at how to do accounting, look at marketing, look at leadership, look at character development. It's how we grow. You know what I mean? So
it's high school. I mean, I used to tell that to my black belts all the time that, they always wanted to like do sparring like really, really hard and like all that stuff. Well, I mean, in Taekwondo, it only takes 3 years to get a black belt, which is, not that hard. But it's only like get through it. Get through the 3 years because it's high school. And then you go off to college. And then when you get to your college point, do whatever you want. Go off, do your thing, go through different martial arts, go through just sparring, go through just forms, go do the competition. I don't care at that point. There is nothing, you've finished. But now branch off, expand. You got your degree. Now what else do you want to do with it? Like
100%. It's very well said because you've built a platform and you've gained expertise in one thing. And then that is actually just going to give you the confidence to pursue other things. Like when I was walking through here, I said, hey, for some people, walking in and seeing a cage and this bag rack and these gorilla professional fighters walking around, it's too much.
It is.
So I want martial arts for everybody.
Yeah.
But like the person at home that's riddled with anxiety, that has, nervousness approaching large groups, they're not going to walk into a building with 80 people on the mat strangling each other and go like, I'll just dive right into that. Yeah. So you know what I mean? Like most people. So with that being said, it's like you want to have avenues for everyone because martial arts is good for everybody. And that was like always my vision. Like when I was dreaming up the Michigan Institute of Athletics, I wanted to reach everyone. Mm-hmm. Not just, man, martial arts is good for, whoever you are that's listening to this, do martial arts.
Yes.
Because it is good for you. You don't need
in every aspect.
You don't need to be this serious gifted athlete. You don't even need to want to compete. You don't have to want to be, a world champion or just do it because it is good for your mind. It is good for your body. It is good for your community. It is good for the people that are around you. So it's something me and Danielle are going to be pushing this to everybody. Do martial arts.
Yes,
Schools,
do martial arts.
We're coming for you.
You don't have a choice.
I already got a good pull into Brighton. You can get your varsity letter through Brighton by training at this academy. I'm starting to get some penetration in the schools.
Amazing.
You can literally get your varsity letter. So the schools are starting to adopt it. We need to push that more.
It
We need to go to schools and say, listen, you've talked about bullying forever. You've talked about these things forever. You've talked about anxiety forever.
I hate that bullying thing. I cannot stand the bullying thing. Not it being done. Like people being like, oh, you're getting bullied. Like put your hand up. I'm sorry. It's not going to go. Bullying's never going to go away. So stop trying to make it seem like it is. It's never. You can make it as many anti-bullying committees as you want. It's never going to go away. That's the world we live in, especially now when you talked about social media. It's just going to get worse, if anything. So the only thing we can do is teach people to be resilient through their bodies and through their brains.
And martial arts might do that.
The martial arts can be that key. It really can.
100%. Martial arts is something that will make you find self-confidence. And if you can do something difficult, like learning to be a martial artist, you can take on the challenges that the world will throw your way. So schools, stop dumping all the money into anti-bullying campaigns and hire professionals that know how to help the children find their self-confidence,
yes.
Find their presence, find their resiliency and their perseverance. You know what I mean? And honestly, that's like one of the biggest things I try to preach to people is like, don't judge a book by its cover. No. Like Josh Parisian, who's now in the UFC, right? He came in over 300 pounds, had never played a sport in his life, grew up in Escanaba, Michigan, had a really tough childhood of abuse and all these things. And the only trait that he had more than anyone I've seen on the mats was perseverance. He wasn't more naturally talented. He didn't have some like crazy gifts about him, but he had grit. And anytime you put that guy through a lesson, he would work his ass off and he would come back in and try again. And I remember one time at our first building, I had two heavyweights at the time. I had Mike Wojo, who was this good-looking six-pack at 6'4", 250, very articulate, spoke well. He was like the figure. Like you're going to be like, who's going to make it to the UFC? Mike Wojo or Josh Parisian? And he beat Josh in every area of the game. But after one training session, Josh actually was breaking down like almost in tears to me on the side of the mat. And he goes like, I'm putting all the time in this and like, it's pointless. Like, I'm never going to be as good as that man. And I was like, listen to me right now. you watch this future come true. The perseverance you have will trump every advantage that he has over you right now. Right now, you see this man that is further along than you. Wait till adversity or extreme challenge hits him. We don't know if he can solve that yet. We do know that you can solve adversity. And now Josh Parisian is the only heavyweight fighter in Michigan's history to get to the UFC after Dan Severn. And it's a man with no natural advantages. He had perseverance. So, man, if you're the kid listening at home being like, I don't know if I can be that martial artist, you just heard a story of a man that is now, fighting on ESPN who came from nothing. What if he would have never walked into a martial arts instructor? What if he would have never sought out somebody? You know what I mean? So it's like we see that because it's easy. We've witnessed people grow, but we need other people to see that.
You got to get out of your comfort zone. You got to. And martial arts is the most uncomfortable sport in the entire world because it puts you in situations that involve you being in danger. And you have to borderline feel like you're sacrificing yourself to get out of it. But it's going to help you in all aspects because first it teaches you to, overcome pretty much anything in your brain when it comes to just normal day-to-day things, but it also teaches you real-life scenarios if someone were to grab you or if your future kids, your future, wife or husband. It teaches you every single thing that you need to do so that you can protect people around you. I mean, strangers. I mean, the world is a scary place. It may not be scary here in Brighton, Howell area, but if I drive 20-30 miles out, I can tell you it's not sunshine and rainbows anymore. It can get scary, and we're in a world now where we have to look out for others as well. I mean, it's nuts, but yeah, do martial arts. Get your kids involved in martial arts. It needs to happen more often than it is. Stop watching the movies and assuming that every school is Cobra Kai. It's not Cobra Kai. Every school is not the Karate Kid. No one will put you out in your first day in bare knuckles in your underwear and make you fight somebody. That's not that's called a movie for why it's a movie. I mean, just get yourself involved to learn at least the basic fundamentals so that you can survive in this rough world that we're in.
Well, if that wasn't a pitch for martial arts, I don't know what is. So, Danielle, absolute pleasure having you in the studio
Thank
today.
you.
Before we wrap it up, please shout out your studio. Shout out where people can follow you online, website, Facebook, Instagram. How do they contact you? And then, we'll wrap this thing up.
Sure. So I'm Limitless Martial Arts in Brighton, not too far away from you. And I teach mainly kids. I don't teach jiu-jitsu. We do Taekwondo a little bit more and self-defense as well. So, if your kids want to get involved, we're a great school for that. You can catch us up online on our website, limitlesskd.com. And then also just follow us with our number. We have a Facebook page and everything, especially if you look it up in Brighton.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the podcast with me today.
Thank you.
Hopefully a couple years down the road, you continue to grow your story. We'll do another one. We'll continue to talk about how life has progressed. And who knows, maybe we'll see Danielle on the jiu-jitsu mats with us, continuing her training. So truly a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.